our price on tasty, nutritious bananas. Just 25 cents a pound. We bring you the best, whether it means going down the road or to the ends of the earth.
Car and Driver has named it to its 10 best list 4 years in a row. Now, there's a Mitsubishi Eclipse you can lease for just $500 down and as little as $149 a month. But hurry, this Eclipse will soon disappear.
Test drive the Eclipse at your Dade Broward Mitsubishi Motors dealer today.
Watch our teamwork, Channel 4 News.
From your 24-hour news source, this is Channel 4 News at 6 with Jerry Helpman, Jose Diaz-Balart, Brian Allen Weather, Ned Smith Sports, and the Channel 4 News team.
From Titusville to the Florida Keys, a hurricane watch is now in effect in Florida. Good evening. With winds of 100 miles an hour, Hurricane Andrew is heading towards South Florida. Team coverage begins with Channel 4 meteorologist Brian Norcross. Brian.
Okay, Jerry, here are the latest coordinates on Hurricane Andrew. These coordinates as of 5 o'clock. Now, we're going to get coordinates at least every 3 hours, and as the storm comes closer to land, we'll get them more often than that. But as of 5 o'clock, it's 25.9 north, 70.4 west. Top winds 100 miles an hour, moving to the west at 15, and west brings it right to Miami. It's 615 miles due east of Miami. This particular latitude is essentially the same latitude that we are right here. So if the storm continues on this path, and it is heading right down the pike of due west at this point, we expect that the storm is going to be in our neighborhood here by early in the day Monday, and possibly very, very early in the day Monday. Now, the central pressure, we have two numbers here because some people like it in millibars, other people like it in inches. 974 millibars, 28.76 inches. And the other thing to notice here is that this number, the 25.9 north, is the same latitude that we had at 2 o'clock and also that we had at 11 o'clock this morning. Now, we do have watches and warnings in effect. First of all, hurricane warnings in effect for the northern Bahamas, including Nassau, Freeport, that's Great Abaco, that's Andros Island, and Eleuthera. And what a hurricane warning means is that hurricane conditions are likely within the next 24 hours. And here's where the hurricane watch is in effect, meaning hurricane conditions are possible. So we're standing by here for more information. We'll show you what systems are affecting this and why we think it will not veer far to the north if it veers north at all. Have that for you in just a few minutes, and we'll check in with the Hurricane Center. Jose.
Okay, Brian, thank you. With Hurricane Andrew now posing a direct threat to South Florida, preparations, as you can imagine, are essential. Team coverage continues now live with Channel 4's Gail Bright at Dade's Emergency Operations Center. Gail.
That's right, here in Southwest Dade, Jose. First of all, we do not want to create a panic situation, nor do the people inside here. They just opened a few minutes ago. As you can see, we're not allowed in there, but they are answering phones. What they want to do is provide you with enough information so that you, with your particular needs, are prepared if this hurricane should hit. Now, if you're a person who needs specific medical attention, medical supplies, anything like that, the first thing you need to do is contact your physician. The second thing you need to do, if you're taking any kind of prescription drugs, you need to stock up on those drugs, because if not, and the hurricane does hit, it could be weeks before you gain access to any kind of medical supplies.
Came to pick up this thing yesterday, and they didn't have enough. I had to make an extra trip to get 18 more. They owe me.
It's very important to have a sufficient supply of the medication you'll be needing. Medication that needs to be refrigerated is of particular concern because of power outages.
If they have a generator and can generate electricity for their own refrigerator should the power go out, that would be the best case scenario. If, however, they have no means of refrigeration, they can pack the medication in a cooler and try to keep it out of direct sunlight.
Remember that hospitals are not shelters, but are there only in case of an emergency. Those needing medical attention aren't the only ones who should be preparing early.
South Florida boaters, you need to make arrangements to store your boat today. The emergency management team says if it's not done today, there may not be room to store it, and there may not be time.
What happens is at the last moment, everybody says, gosh, I better do something. And they then try to crowd their boat into where you've made elaborate preparations. They cut your lines, they tangle you up, and create a generally unsafe situation anywhere you go.
25% of hurricane fatalities result from boaters trying to secure vessels in deteriorating storm conditions. More than half of the deaths attributed to Hurricane Hugo back in 1989 were boaters who drowned while attempting to save their boats. And last, but certainly not least, don't forget about your pet. Make sure he has what he needs and that he is brought inside before that hurricane watch goes into effect.
Now, real quick, let me give you just a couple of phone numbers here. In Dade County, 596-8735, Broward County, 357-8454. We'll have those numbers again for you in just a few minutes. Right now, back to you.
Gail, thanks for that live report. Jerry.
An emergency command meeting has just been held at Fort Lauderdale's Emergency Operations Center. Channel 4's Ari Odzer picks up our live team coverage. Ari.
Well, Jerry, we are at the Broward County Governmental Center in downtown Fort Lauderdale. This is where the EOC is located, the Emergency Operations Center. It's upstairs. Right now, as we speak, that meeting is going on. Representatives from all the local police agencies, the Broward County Sheriff, the emergency preparedness staff from the county are all up there preparing for the worst-case scenario, a visit from Andrew. On a day like this, it's hard to picture huge crashing waves and 100-mile-an-hour winds. But if Andrew blows in on Broward, that's what we'll get.
Is South Florida ready for a storm of this magnitude?
Well, you know, we haven't had one since 1964 when Cleo went through here, and there's an awful lot of people who have never experienced it. We're talking about 98% of the people. So this is a very dangerous situation for us to have that number of people inexperienced.
Broward's emergency planner says it's most dangerous for people living along the beach, the condo dwellers.
If Andrew should pay us a direct visit, the hurricane's storm surge could have waves lapping as high as the 3rd floor of this building. But even so, the chances of any of these buildings actually collapsing are very remote. According to the experts, the real danger for condo dwellers comes from unprotected windows. If your windows don't have storm shutters like these over here, then you run the risk of all that hurricane debris flying around out there, smashing into your windows and causing all sorts of internal damage.
Not going through one, you really don't know what to expect. You've seen the devastation from other hurricanes, but not having been through one yourself, it's hard to believe that you would be in one. And we would watch it very closely and take it quite seriously.
So there's no chance that you wouldn't evacuate when the authorities came over here?
No chance that we wouldn't.
No.
Carol and Marvin Stone are getting ready to evacuate just in case. Before they leave, they should move any loose items inside from their balcony and take their important papers and medicines with them. The experts say people who live in trailer parks should also be prepared to move to a Red Cross shelter if a hurricane warning is issued. Trailer parks, they say, are not safe no matter how far inland they're located. And Broward boaters start looking for an inland marina to ride out the storm in.
Is it too early to start thinking about moving your boat in case a hurricane comes?
Certainly not. It's time to make a plan and take things in consideration to move, certainly.
Don't delay, because when it comes time to move, time is going to be very, very valuable, and will go very rapidly.
So at least get the mental preparations ready today to act physically tomorrow.
Oh, yes, certainly be aware of it. I was surprised in several conversations this morning that many people aren't even aware of what's going on out there.
Now, there's no reason to panic, of course, but ignoring the hurricane warning at this stage could literally be a fatal mistake. Jose?
All right, thanks for that live report. As you can imagine, a hectic night at the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables. Channel 4 meteorologist Brian Norcross takes us there. Brian.
Okay, Jose, come on back.
We just lost the feed to the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables.
All right, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's take a look at the satellite loop here. We have not looked at this. Let's look at that while we try and get our feed back, because we have Dr. Bob Sheets standing by there. Now, you can see the eye here very clearly. We lost it a little earlier today, and then here it comes along, and I think you can see maybe, if any, a little shift to the south, but I think that might be just a wobble, if anything else. But now we have the man who has contact with the aircraft in the system there. Bob, let's go down to you. Bob, is this thing taking a due west course? Is that what we're saying?
We're saying due west right now, but again, it could be 2 or 3 degrees farther to the west-southwest or the west-northwest, so generally due west.
All right, the latest Air Force reconnaissance, have we seen any decrease in pressure or increase in winds?
Well, the last airplane left there at around 1 p.m., and so we'll have another one in there about another 2 hours from now.
Now, your models and what you know from the aircraft there, any indication of any reason to think that the high pressure to the north that's trapping this storm south and keeping it from going north is going to go anywhere, that there's going to be any weakness, like we like to say, in there?
No, the very strong probability that it will indeed strike Florida somewhere in that zone that we indicated there for the hurricane watch.
Now, we have Ed Odell over in the Bahamas, and he's saying the people there on the radio are hoping it's not going to come and telling people that they maybe shouldn't prepare. We don't want to encourage that in any way, do we?
No way at all. It is a relatively small storm, so the core of that hurricane could pass very close to the Bahamas without major impact there. And people here should not get a false sense of security if that happens. If the center does pass just to the north, say, of some of those islands, and they don't get a whole lot there, and people think that's what's going to happen here. That's not the case. The core of that hurricane is quite strong.
Yeah, and we know from the storm surge models that we talk about all the time that it's coming up against a coastline where you get the big storm surges, and the different coastlines, it varies quite significantly in the amount of storm surge you might get, right?
That's right, and we're this core wind of 100 miles per hour now and expected to get up maybe 110 miles per hour or so. Then that area is the area that's going to suffer the greatest damage, not only from the wind, but also the storm surge.
All right, Bob, we'll be back with you with our special program coming up at 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, let's go back to Jerry, and we'll look at that loop in more detail, as well as the latest information. And also, for boaters, this is very important, what you can expect tomorrow out on the seas as you try and do things with your boat. We'll have that information for you coming up in a few minutes. Jerry.
Okay, thanks, Brian. And our hurricane coverage continues tonight. Beginning at 7 o'clock, we'll have answers to your hurricane questions, a special hour to call in and find out everything you need to know to prepare for Andrew. To get up-to-the-minute information by phone, you can call Rumor Control in Dade at 596-8735. That's 596-8735. The Broward number is not set up yet. There's one on the screen, but I'm not sure if that's accurate or not.
It'll be open.
Okay, the number on the screen is correct, 357-8454. That's Rumor Control in Broward. And don't forget our recorded number here that can give you the latest recorded information at Channel 4 in Broward, 731-7000. And then you press a code that says 4444. And in Dade County, the number is 358-8000. Again, press a code 4444.
Just want to recap there what you just saw on the screen. If we can take those numbers off the screen right now, if we could do that. Those numbers are incorrect. The numbers you gave are correct. Let me give them one more time. The number in Dade to call Channel 4 is, I have it right here, 358-8000, code 4444, and in Broward, 731-7000, code 4444. Those are the numbers Jerry gave, but on the screen, the numbers were incorrectly stated. And by the way, in Monroe, the Rumor Control number is 289-6018, or 1-800-427-8340.
Okay. Coming up next on the Channel 4 News, for the second time in 2 weeks, bloodshed in a South Florida nightclub.
Fumes send Margate residents scrambling. We'll tell you what caused it.
And a hurricane watch is now in effect for South Florida. We'll take you live to the Hurricane Center in Coral Gables.
You're late, Mr. Chandler.
We're over budget.
Line 4. We've got a big problem here. New York, line 5.
The new 225-horsepower Lexus SC300 Coupe. It's the perfectly designed executive decompression chamber. And it's not much to pay for a little attitude adjustment at your South Florida Lexus dealer.
You bought it, Matt. You gotta handle it.
If you buy something at Circuit City, then see it advertised for less, just come back. Our low price guarantee means you'll get the difference.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Last week I bought this.
Plus 10% of the difference.
And today I saw this. Just open the paper and there it was.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
That's it?
That's it.
Cool.
Welcome to Circuit City, where service is state of the art.
Base hit could win it.
Long drive to left field. It's deep, deep. He's on the warning track.
I love my calendar guy. My Rob's calendar guy. He gets great prices.
men's shirts and pants. At department stores, $35. At Ross, $19. The only difference is the price. A designer silk blouse. At fine stores, $48. The same blouse at Ross, $16. The only difference is the price.
My Ross calendar girl, she gets great prices every day of the year.
During Dodge's first national minivan sale, get hundreds in cash to dress up your new Caravan. 500 cash back on leather trim seats. 300 cash back on anti-lock brakes and rear air conditioning. Big savings on quad seats, sunscreen glass, even child safety seats. Plus, get $500 cash back on select Caravans. See your nearest Dodge dealer now.
See your South Florida Dodge dealer today for a great deal on your favorite new Dodge car or truck.
From your 24-hour news source, Channel 4 News continues.
Miami police looking for the person who killed a man in the parking lot of a Coconut Grove nightclub. The victim was walking to his car in the parking lot of Suzanne's when he was gunned down. Officials say they don't know what led to that shooting. Friends and family of a man killed in last week's massacre at a Northwest Dade restaurant remembered today. Christopher Morris was one of 4 people killed at the Taste of the Islands restaurant last Saturday. 18 others were injured in the shooting. The gunmen, they're still on the loose.
Bond denied today for the 3 suspects in the murder of Coral Springs student Lu Yen Nguyen. 2 brothers, William Madelone Jr. and Christopher Madelone and Derek Cosma, among 8 arrested so far, all charged with second-degree murder. Police say the 19-year-old pre-med student was the victim of a violent racial attack. More arrests are expected. A gas leak in Margate forcing families to evacuate their homes. It happened when a construction worker accidentally dug a 3-inch hole in an underground tank. It took 5 hours for firefighters to contain the leak. In the meantime, FPL shut down electricity to the area to prevent explosions. 12 firefighters working on the scene were treated for eye and throat irritation.
The homeless, just one group being helped by a massive concert underway in downtown Miami. The Lollapalooza Tour is in Miami tonight. 7 bands, including Pearl Jam and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, are headlining the concert at Bicentennial Park. Some money from ticket sales will go to South Florida homeless organizations. And straight ahead on the Channel 4 News.
We'll tell you the latest information on Hurricane Andrew live from the National Hurricane Center.
And I'm Ed Smith. Ahead in sports, a big game for the Dolphins tonight, particularly for 13 players. And the pollsters are tracking another set of hurricanes. These are, of course, the Miami Hurricanes. We'll tell you where AP ranks them when we come back.
Tropicana Pure Premium. For pure taste, you just can't pick a better juice. In the world of luxury automobiles, you expect aerodynamic styling. A beautifully crafted, leather-trimmed interior, the uncompromising safety of driver's and passenger side airbags, and the superior performance of a 24-valve engine. You just don't expect it to be so affordable. The Acura Luxury Lease Program. It's more than a lease. It's a legend.
Tuesday night, I was at Chili's when I ran into an old friend. We shook hands. Then we swapped stories over the baby back ribs. It was hard to say which was juicier, his stories or those ribs. The ribs got my vote. A full rack of tender Danish baby back ribs brushed with spicy barbecue sauce. I told him we should do this again soon. So we've been repeating Tuesday night at Chili's ever since.
Tuesday night at Chili's. Tuesday night at Chili's. Tuesday night at Chili's. Tuesday night at Chili's.
Here's coffee. You know, my decaffeinated is darker than yours.
And you wake up perkier, and your newspaper's more in-depth.
Wait.
So...
I'll do it again. Here's your brand. My Folgers Crystals. Mountain grown. I'm filling. I'm pouring. I'm darker.
Okay. Can I have a taste?
Sure.
Decaffeinated Folgers Crystals. So dark and rich. Shouldn't you switch?
You know, your decaffeinated is darker than mine.
What you're looking at is the failure of traditional health insurance. Because traditional health plans have deductibles, and that discourages people from seeing their doctors until small problems become big ones. But with AvMed, you're encouraged to see your doctor. Most visits cost just $5, and there are no deductibles. You see, our goal isn't just to treat problems, it's to prevent them. Because we believe this is no place to start using a health plan.
Missy's had it with her mother's crazy nightlife. She says, my mom's a party animal. Next Salad.
Weekdays at 4, only on Channel 4. Monday at 5 on 4 News Now. What's the secret to eternal youth?
Someone offered you a magic potion and said you could be young forever.
Wonderful. Yes. I just want to look the best at every age I can.
Find out what it takes to be forever young.
I do whatever.
On 4 News Now, Monday at 5. Real life, real news.
From your 24-hour news source, Channel 4 News continues.
I'm probably the only guy on this station who won't be talking about Hurricane Andrew, but I can tell you that 13 current Miami Dolphins are hoping to weather the next few days, trying to make the team. 13, the number of players Coach Don Shula must cut by Tuesday. Tonight's game against the Tampa Bay Bucks at Joe Robbie Stadium will be the last time to shine, but that's hard to do unless you get a chance to play.
I'm kind of nervous, but I'm not going to let the nervousness affect my performance on the field. You know, I'm just going out there every day and doing my best, and that's really all you can ask for. And hopefully you get a break and get a chance to be on the team.
Hope you get in a situation where you can show something, because sometimes you get in a situation you can't really show anything. So just hope for the best of getting in and getting in a good situation and doing what you're taught to do and do it the best you can.
All right, game time tonight, 8 o'clock. There's another hurricane watch going on, but this one's already been tracked to the top of the polls. Of course, I'm talking about the Miami Hurricanes. They're already on the top spot in the CNN USA Today football poll. They've now claimed number 1 in the AP poll. The preseason poll has Florida's 3 teams in the top 5, Miami at number 1, Florida at number 4, and the Noles are number 5. Co-defending champ Washington claimed the 2nd spot. Notre Dame is number 3. Miami opens up with number 16, Iowa. With all the talk about hurricanes, wouldn't you know that a horse with a weather-type name would win today's Travers Stakes in New York? Down the stretch, Thunder Rumble, who went off at 7-1, begins to pull away from the pack and goes on to win the Travers Stakes by 5 lengths. Devil His Due was second. Dance Floor was third. The favorite, Alley Deep, finished out of the money for the first time in 10 starts. Go to baseball scores. We'll begin the American League. Boston defeats Seattle. Cleveland over Texas 6-1 in the National League. Pittsburgh's on top of San Fran 8-2 in the 7th. One other baseball note, the New York Yankees traded pitcher Tim Leary to Seattle for minor league outfielder Sean Twitty. Jose and Jerry, back to you.
Okay, thanks
Ned,
a lot.
Thanks. Straight ahead on the Channel 4 News, we'll have more Hurricane Andrew coverage.
Including what kinds of weather you can expect tomorrow. That and more when we come right back.
Car and Driver has named it to its 10 best list 4 years in a row. Now, there's a Mitsubishi Eclipse you can lease for just $500 down and as little as $149 a month. But hurry, this Eclipse will soon disappear.
Test drive the Eclipse at your Dade Broward Mitsubishi Motors dealer today.
To make summer living easy, you're sure to find at Publix.
Still waiting for your real estate agent to sell your house? Did you know the average full-time agent only sells 7 homes a year? How much longer can you afford to wait before your agent gets lucky? It's time to change. Experienced RE/MAX sales associates average 24 transactions a year, and that's good news for you. Buying or selling, call RE/MAX for the experience.
Selling homes now, RE/MAX experience.
You kids think that getting drunk or stoned is no big deal? Wrong. Because when you get wasted, you start losing control. You start telling yourself that you can stop any time, but you don't stop. And then you start getting scared. But listen, don't be afraid to ask for help, because even if you're at rock bottom, there are people who can help you make it back. So don't get scared to death. Get help.
They're counting down the days at your South Florida Dodge dealers.
The 92s are on their way out, so they're having a big send-off for selected models in stock, with $500 cash back on America's best-selling minivan, Dodge Caravan. But you better hurry. $500 cash back on the Magnum-powered Dakota, but you better hurry. And you can still get a great deal on a 92 Stealth, but you better hurry, because once they're gone, they're gone. So see your South Florida Dodge dealer before time runs out.
I'm Ileana Bravo, urging you to become a blood donor this summer. You'll help save lives, and you may win a one-day Discovery cruise. Some restrictions apply. Call 1-800-GIVE-LIFE.
From your 24-hour news source, Channel 4 News continues.
Okay, time now to check up with Brian Norcross on the latest weather situation.
Brian, I have a question. You know, for years we've been watching storms come right through here, and they swing to the north of us. And that's what everyone thinks is going to happen. Everyone I talk to says, oh, it'll swing by us. But there's some kind of pressure system out there that's going to prevent that from happening.
Well, it's going to prevent it from avoiding Florida. Okay, I mean, we have had many storms come close to us, but the thing you have to remember is that a hurricane is really a relatively small system in the overall scheme of things. We're talking about hurricane force winds over a band of only about 60 miles here. So take that 60 miles and put it on a coastline here that's maybe 400 miles long, and you see a little deviation that makes a lot of difference. Hurricane David, which everybody says missed us, hit Jupiter. And Jupiter really is not that far away, and they hit Jupiter and did $95 million worth of damage. So I'm not going to say, we're not saying in any way that the hurricane is going to come here and do the most damage in Dade-Broward County. That is not what we're saying. What we're saying is the risk is high enough that that could happen, that we need to prepare as if we knew for sure it were going to happen. Okay, let's once again check the coordinates. 25.9, 70.4 in case you're just tuning in, 100 miles per hour, west at 15, 615 miles away. Now, the watch and warning areas, the hurricane warnings in effect for all of the northern Bahamas, including, of course, Nassau and Freeport, the two large cities in the Bahamas, and the hurricane watch in effect up to Titusville, down including Dade and Broward, and off to the Keys, down to the Dry Tortugas. The hurricane watch meaning that hurricane conditions are possible within the next 36 hours. Hurricane warnings meaning hurricane conditions are probable, are likely within the next 24 hours or so. Now, here's what you were talking about, Jerry. Here is Andrew right here. Here's the weather system to the north, this high pressure that's acting like a cap on Andrew. Interestingly, this is the normal condition in the Atlantic Ocean in the summertime, to have a big Bermuda high-pressure system sitting there and have hurricanes move down below it. We've been very lucky that when the storms have come along over many years, the system hasn't been there. It's broken down. We are in a normal situation here, and a lot of folks that live here remember all these storms deflecting, but the folks that were here in the 40s remember 9 major storms in South Florida. So this is the normal condition in the most hurricane-prone area that there is. All right, satellite loop. This is going to be our last visible picture where we really can see the concentric wall around the eye, and that's where the hurricane force winds are right there, plus or minus 30 miles. Let's roll the loop now and watch as we go through the day here today, and watch the eye right there, and you can track the center of it very clearly on a due west path, wobbling just slightly as it moves on off to the west. I need somebody to tell me how much time I have here because, okay, I want to say a couple more things here, and we're going to go to Dr. Bob Sheets here in just a second. Bob, if you can hear me, stand by. All right, notice here as we look at the system that the purple area is wider north of the eye than it is south of the eye. As a storm develops, the right-hand quadrant, it's called, as the system is moving forward, or it's moving forward toward me, the right side, which would be up here, is the stronger side. And the reason for that is the winds rotate around this way, and in this side, the motion of the storm adds to the wind speed. So if the storm is 15 miles an hour, wind speed is, say, 100 miles an hour, you've got equivalent of about 115 on that top side, and that's where the storm surge is. Okay, now let's go ahead to Dr. Bob Sheets. Bob, we talked a lot about the hurricane conditions, the tropical storm conditions coming in. We didn't talk much about tomorrow. And, of course, tomorrow is our day here to prepare boats, to evacuate, whatever needs to be done. At what point tomorrow are you thinking that we're going to see some effect from the storm?
Well, we don't think there'll be much of any kind of effect other than a beautiful day out there because it sort of clears that ring out around it. And so it is a time for people to prepare.
By late in the day tomorrow, I noticed in the marine forecast, we're talking about the possibility of northwest winds, or northeast winds, I guess, up to maybe 30 knots by late in the day, tomorrow night.
That would be late tomorrow night as the fringe effects of the storm were to get there. But all day tomorrow, it should be a beautiful day to prepare in case the storm were to come this way.
Now, for those folks who are watching us in the Bahamas, though, they need to be acting faster than here in South Florida.
That's right. We've got the warnings up over there, and so they need to be taking those actions at this time.
Okay. All right, Bob, we'll check back with you at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and check on our situation here because tomorrow is our day here to take action in advance of the approach of this hurricane. For the boaters, and the boaters have a huge dilemma, and at 7 o'clock we'll be talking a lot more about this. Prepare for hurricane conditions. Tomorrow is your day to prepare. The winds will be increasing to make that, I think it's more likely to be northeast at 30, north to northeast by late in the day. By very late, we may get northwest, depends on exactly the angle the hurricane comes in, but 30 knots, which would make it very difficult to do much of moving your boat. 8 to 12-foot seas by late in the day. Rough in the bay, 87 in the surf, but early in the day, you should be just fine and we won't have any problem with taking care of your boating situation. Some showers off and on tonight, but generally it's going to be okay out there, about 80. Tomorrow, a few showers in the morning, and then increasing wind. I think plenty of sunshine tomorrow, so it should not be bad. Monday, Andrew is the big question mark. Exactly what that's going to mean is just we're waiting to see. And then it's just going to be steamy and back to normal as the storm is forecast to move across the state out into the Gulf. And it's going to be a big problem potentially for someone along the Gulf Coast after that. We'll be back at 7 o'clock with lots more. Here's Jerry and Jose.
Okay, Brian, thanks.
And thanks for watching. Now, as Brian said, from 7 to 8, we're going to have 1 hour to answer your questions. And then the nightcast at 11 o'clock will go an entire hour till midnight. So we can have the latest on that.
Right, and then at midnight, we're going to rebroadcast 2 hurricane specials for you with important information.
We'll see you at 11.
The presidential candidates battle for votes on the issues of trust and the economy. And in Africa, the food trickles toward the starving, but there's a long way to go.
This is NBC Nightly News, reported by Garrett Utley.
Good evening, I'm Michelle Gill, and Garrick Utley is on vacation. The South and the Midwest, family values and the economy. Critical regions, critical issues as George Bush and Bill Clinton ran hard today. The president tried to maintain the momentum he gained from the Republican convention. John Cochran is with Bush in the South. John Dancy is on the Clinton bus tour in Ohio. John Cochran, let's begin with you.
Michelle, here in the Bible Belt, the Bush campaign is trying to divert attention from a weak economy with constant attacks on Bill Clinton's character.
In Georgia, Bush knew he could count on a surrogate to deliver the gut punches, and Congressman Newt Gingrich did, as he tried in a convoluted way to connect the Democratic Party's platform plank on the family with the family feud between Woody Allen and Mia Farrow. Bush made a more conventional assault on Bill Clinton. But instead of repeating his charge that Clinton does not have enough government experience, today Bush said Clinton has too much government experience.
I wonder about the governor of Arkansas. I wonder why it is that whenever he's faced with any problem, his solution is always to put government first. But you know, it's not so surprising. When you've spent more of your life in government like he has, government's all you know anything about.
As Bush moved into Alabama, his campaign aides said early polls since the convention show Bush is gaining ground in the South more than other regions. Today, again and again, Bush hit hard on the character issue and conservative themes popular in the South.
It's a choice about the character of the person you want to lead this nation and the direction you want us to go. I believe I am the person to have that support. And I ask for your support based on my experience, my ideas, and my character. And let me say this, I share Alabama's commitment to family values, and we will never forget we are one nation under God.
As for his convention promise to cut both taxes and spending next year, Bush's aides say he will not reveal details until after the election. For now, they think he can get by without specifics.
We've got to do both. Lower spending and lower taxes.
Bush would dearly love to lock up the Deep South early in the campaign so he can devote more time and money to swing states in the North. But Bush faces 3 problems in the South: a faltering economy and 2 Southern Baptists on the other ticket. Michelle?
Thanks, John. John Dancy is with the Clinton campaign in one of those swing states, Ohio, as the campaign began a new Midwest bus tour. John?
Michelle, these bus tours and rallies like the one which just ended behind me here in Youngstown, Ohio, are not random events. Each one is targeted at a specific group of voters. Today, it was blacks and Reagan Democrats. And Gore have developed into a tag team act. Gore, who was introduced today as the distinguished son of a distinguished father, nevertheless whips up the crowd like a brush arbor preacher.
Are you ready for change in this country? Do you want 4 more years of what we've had?
And Clinton tailors his message to his audience, to black inner city residents of Cleveland.
We are wasting people at an astonishing rate in this country. The dropout rate, the drug abuse rate, the youth violence rate, and we've got to bring them back.
Clinton made 2 appearances in Cleveland's inner city. His staff worries that his deliberate attempt to distance himself from Jesse Jackson will cost him support in November. Clinton also campaigned today in Parma, the heavily ethnic suburb of Cleveland.
When you talk family values, you're talking Parma, Ohio. It is the weather vane for the nation. These are people who have voted for Ronald Reagan for the last 8 years, and I think they're going to vote for Bill Clinton and for Al Gore this time.
How does Clinton bring back Reagan Democrats?
One thing is campaigning face-to-face. A lot of people don't know Bill Clinton, and when they see him face-to-face, either in a crowd, this kind of thing, the electricity is unbelievable.
Here, Clinton's message was economic.
What we propose to do is to put the American people back to work by giving people more incentives to create new jobs here at home, but no more incentives to move our jobs overseas.
Clinton today brushed off Republican attacks at the convention and said he wants to get back to telling people about his program. He was undismayed about polls that show Bush closing in.
That's about as good as we could hope to. You know, there's always a bump that comes from a convention. And I'm pleased with that. If that's what the margin is, I'm pleased with that.
Whether Clinton can hold a margin over Bush will depend to a large extent on whether he can hold the blacks and bring home Reagan Democrats, the very groups he was appealing to today. Michelle?
Thank you, John. When Nightly News continues, we'll go to Africa for the latest on relief for the starving in Somalia. And on Focus this evening, we look at how the law is getting tougher when people are arrested and they have AIDS.
The makers of Dimetapp know it's important for allergy and cold sufferers to trust their medication. Doctors and pharmacists have trusted the Dimetapp brand for safe, effective relief for 30 years. You can trust Dimetapp Extend tabs for 12 hours of allergy relief. And if you're concerned about drowsiness, Dimetapp contains one of the least sedating, non-prescription antihistamines. Trust Dimetapp, the #1 doctor-recommended antihistamine decongestant non-prescription formula.
Do you get diarrhea too?
Yes, I do get diarrhea, and what I take is kaopectate. I have no time to be sick. Kaopectate stops the symptoms fast. It gets rid of the diarrhea. Kaopectate works every time.
Why Centrum Silver? Because you're over 50 and you're just hitting your stride. Centrum Silver vitamins. Because the latest scientific research about changing nutritional needs after 50 is built in. Centrum Silver. It's a great time to be silver.
Wildfires continue to rip through large areas of the West today, keeping thousands of people away from their homes. Officials are calling the fires the worst in 5 years. The biggest by far is in Idaho, covering more than 250 square miles. It's mostly in a remote mountainous area, but came within 6 miles of Boise. The fire spread quickly, pushed by 40-mile-an-hour winds. It has forced the evacuation of one small town and dozens of campers. As many as 900 firefighters are trying to stop it, but on one side, the flames are just too dangerous and too unpredictable for any firefighters to get even close. And now, looking overseas, the situation remains just desperate in Somalia, where it is estimated 1,000 people a day are dying from starvation. Today, a second plane load of U.S. food got off the ground in neighboring Kenya. Charles McLean is there.
After days of technical hitches and diplomatic delays, the United States airlift is finally underway. Direct U.S. food aid to Somalia and eastern Kenya is expected to total 145,000 tons.
Well, I think this is a great opportunity for us to help mankind here in these countries that need our help.
At a staging area in Mombasa, Kenya, workers load half a ton of split peas per minute into huge U.S. Air Force cargo planes. Initially, all American food aid is being transported to Wajir in eastern Kenya, an area hard hit by drought and famine. Starving Kenyans there have been joined by hundreds of thousands of Somali refugees, fleeing even worse conditions in southern Somalia. In a week, U.S. officials hope to establish several bases inside Somalia itself. Welcome news to international relief agencies.
The American airlift will make it possible to deliver substantial quantities of food to areas where it's difficult at this time to get supplies through by truck.
For many famine victims in the Horn of Africa, the aid will come too late. The United Nations, criticized by some relief agencies for its slow response to the crisis, now estimates 1.5 to 2 million Somalis could die within weeks if food doesn't arrive. Back in Wajir, a fully loaded truck rolls out with the first shipment of American aid as the process of saving lives begins in earnest. Charles McLean, NBC News, Mombasa, Kenya.
Earlier today, I spoke with Andrew Natsios, who was just appointed to head the U.S. relief effort in Somalia. He's heading there tomorrow. I asked him, what will it take to get the operation running at full speed?
We will, by the mid part of next week, I hope, maybe the end of next week, be flying food into Somalia itself. And we hope it will be to 3 or 4 different locations, but that's being determined based on security conditions and on the ports conditions as well.
And speaking of security, I was just in Ethiopia a few months ago and saw firsthand the amount of corruption, theft of food aid. How are you going to prevent that?
Well, it's impossible in the middle of chaos and civil war to prevent all food from being diverted. The fact of the matter is, however, that I think the International Committee of the Red Cross and the United Nations, which are our principal distributors of food at this point, although some other American private voluntary organizations are going to join in as well, they have been trying very hard under very, very adverse circumstances. Their relief workers have been killed. Many of their people have guns pointed at them doing their distribution, so it's a very, very chaotic situation.
And indeed, sir, I spoke with some members of the Red Cross today who voiced their frustration and their concern over security. So what can you tell us about what will be done, U.S. Or the United Nations, to protect the people there and the food aid?
Well, we're going to try a different tact beyond just the airlift. The airlift is only about 2% of the 145,000 tons that we're sending in. The rest is going to have to be sent in by truck and by ship. We could never do all of it by airlift. It's simply physically impossible. And what we're going to do is sell the food to Somali merchants in Kenya, where there's relative stability, or in Djibouti or one of the other neighboring countries. And we're going to rely on the clans that these merchants come from to protect the food that will then be owned by the merchants.
Well, we thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And in a moment, law and order and AIDS.
So you just got a cash advance, did you? Too bad you used an ordinary credit card, because you could be carrying some very heavy interest charges. Why not carry the Discover card? Just pay your full monthly balance and a small transaction fee, and we'll forget the interest, which means our money comes with no strings attached. It pays to Discover.
Her name is Sarah, and she's lucky, because today she'll encounter egrets doing dances and alligators in the wild. She'll see how other moms take care of their kids. And she'll be doing this, recycling, through a program of the National Park Service and its recycling partner, Dow.
We can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Together with the National Park Service and folks like Sarah.
Dow lets you do great things.
Ordinary pickles are cooked, and most don't snap. Not Clausen. They're packed fresh and stored cold, so they're always crisp and delicious. Taste the difference. Cold, crisp, Clausen.
In art, taste is subjective, but in life, good taste is well defined. Fancy Feast gourmet cat food, exceptionally moist and delicious. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
On Focus tonight, we look at an issue in our society as it deals with the spread of AIDS. 230,000 cases in the United States so far. It is the legal issue. Increasingly, prosecutors are filing tough criminal charges against people with AIDS when their actions threaten the health of others. NBC's Bob Dotson reports.
Take any little crime. Take jaywalking. Steve O'Banion was stopped for that in Cincinnati. Got into a shouting match, then scuffled with jailers.
The officer holding me down by the neck punched me 3 or 4 different times.
There was blood. That's when O'Banion told the officers he had AIDS, turning a jaywalking arrest into an attempted murder charge.
It's like every time he would get a mouthful of blood, he'd spit it on us.
More and more these days, the disease, not just the defendant, is on trial. A prostitute in Pennsylvania was recently arrested, charged with having unprotected sex with up to 50 people a week, 3 years after she tested positive for AIDS. It is now against the law in nearly half the states to knowingly infect someone. There have already been 300 criminal prosecutions in this country. Gay rights activists are troubled with such indictments.
Everybody who's sexually active is responsible for their own health.
But increasingly, governments are stepping in.
Singapore now fines and imprisons any infected person, including husbands and wives who have sex without first disclosing their condition. In Uganda, where more than 1 million people have HIV, extramarital sex is now outlawed.
I don't think we'll see adulterers charged with manslaughter, but the thing you have to keep in mind with HIV is that it's sort of like a joker in the legal deck.
Just ask Steve O'Banion. None of the officers he fought with tested positive for HIV. A Cincinnati judge set the jaywalker free. A lot of people are afraid that AIDS will become a weapon. It colors any confrontation.
If you do not disperse, you will be arrested.
Question is, should we prosecute the crime or the fear? Bob Dotson, NBC News, Atlanta.
And we'll have more news as we continue.
Knock out the flea and tick problem for good. Hit him with the old 1-2 combination punch from Hearts. Get rid of them with the Hearts 2-in-1 Rib Flea Shampoo. Those tough bubbles knock out fleas and ticks while leaving Rocky looking and smelling like a champ. Follow through with the Hearts 2-in-1 Collar. It stops fleas and ticks dead for up to 5 months, even if it gets wet. Hearts 2-in-1 Rib Flea Shampoo and a Hearts 2-in-1 Collar. That's the Hearts 1-2 punch. It's murder on fleas and ticks. Hearts, everything good for your pet.
Of all the things around your house that need batteries, there's one thing that needs a good, fresh battery most of all. See your Allstate agent for a free home fire safety brochure. And please, check the battery in your smoke detector often.
It was unreal. You woke up with morning breath. You were meeting Miss Wonderful for breakfast, and instead of minty fresh scope... Where's my scope? There was something from the medicine-y mouthwash. It looked blue, but it still smelled somewhat medicine-y. I need my scope. It's okay. Relax. It was all a dream. You do have scope. It's minty through and through and kills 90% of morning breath bacteria. So you use minty fresh scope, and you kiss morning breath goodbye.
There's one battery that backs you with free jumpstart service anywhere for any reason. Die Hard.
Can't believe I left my lights on.
Sears Die Hard. The battery you can count on to give you more power when you need it most.
For painful gas, which would you choose? Your antacid or Gas-X, the tablet made for gas. It's extra strength, 100% simethicone to fight gas faster. Faster than your antacid. Fight gas right with Gas-X.
This was another day of fierce shelling and street fighting in the Bosnian capital of Sarajevo. At least 30 people killed, in 24 hours. Some of the mortar attacks broke windows at the UN headquarters, and the new UN commander appealed to both sides to protect the peacekeepers, saying his troops have no mandate to fight back. The relief airlift continued despite the heavy bombardment and had to be suspended at one point for 2 hours. Signs of growing tension today between the United States and Iraq. The U.S. warned there is an increased risk of terrorist attacks. It said Americans should stay out of neighboring Jordan and be aware of possible risks throughout the Middle East, South Asia, and North Africa. And in Iraq, there were reports of new ground attacks by Saddam Hussein's forces against Shiite Muslims in the south, as the United States, Britain, and France prepare to begin protecting that region with military flights early next week. Ed Rabel takes a look at the people under threat from their own leader.
These are Shiite Muslims in Iraq, second-class citizens, they say, because Saddam Hussein's ruling Sunni Muslims dominate them, even though the Shiites are 55% of the population. The discrimination based on ancient religious differences has become institutionalized. Shiites seldom get top jobs and are paid less for the work they do. But the government adamantly denies that it's killing off the Shiites who live in the marshes of southern Iraq. To back up its denial, Iraqi TV broadcasts pictures of Shiites in the marshes cheering for Saddam. But the U.S. and its allies say there are 200,000 rebels here who need protecting from Iraqi air attacks. The UN's Jan Eliasson thinks UN guards can protect the Shiites.
To have a UN presence in this limited form, in the form of a humanitarian program and in the form of UN guards, could be the best solution under the circumstances.
But the United States, Britain, and France are setting up a safety zone for the Shiites. The Allies would shoot down Iraqi aircraft violating it. Kurds in northern Iraq already are protected against Iraqi airstrikes. Iraq will control the skies only over about half of its territory. Thousands of Kurdish refugees still are living in camps in the safety zones, stuck here 18 months after the Gulf War. Iraqi soldiers control their hometowns. And the refugees are angry that Saddam Hussein still is in charge of territory they call Kurdistan, land they think of as their own country. Baghdad fears that the 20 million Kurds to the north will try to establish their own nation in Iraqi territory. By partitioning Iraq to keep people safe, the West, perhaps purposefully, also gives aid and comfort to Saddam's adversaries. The Iraqis say they have a right to protect their country from their longtime enemies in the north and the south. That stand seems certain to keep Baghdad on a collision course with the West. Ed Rabel, NBC News, Baghdad.
Time now to take a look at some of the stories that made news this week. The Republicans sent George Bush and Dan Quayle into battle for a second term, as the president claimed credit for helping bring sweeping change around the world. In Russia, Boris Yeltsin underscored how painful change can be. On the anniversary of the failed communist coup, Yeltsin warned Russians they face another difficult winter, but vowed to continue reforms. For Woody Allen, it read like one of his scripts. The 56-year-old director admitted falling in love with 21-year-old Soon-Yi Previn, who happens to be the adopted daughter of his longtime companion, Mia Farrow. At age 35, Larry Bird was one of the grand old men of his game, but age and injury caught up with him, forcing the star of the Boston Celtics to announce his retirement. And for a second time this summer, Alaska's Mount Spur volcano came to life, dumping a blanket of ash on the city of Anchorage. And in the Atlantic Ocean, Tropical Storm Andrew became the season's first hurricane today, with winds of 95 miles per hour. Andrew is about 650 miles east of Miami, could reach the United States by Tuesday. And just in case you've been wondering, this summer has been the coolest on record in the eastern and central parts of the country. For some businesses, it's been too cool for comfort. Here's Chief Economics Correspondent Irving R. Levine.
For many businesses already stung by recession, the rain and unseasonably cool weather this summer could be the final straw. Businesses like the Homestead Restaurant on the New Jersey shore count on a hot summer to carry them through the rest of the year. This summer, rained 17 of the last 19 weekends.
It's about 30% off from last year.
And I think you can pretty much attribute most everything to the weather.
The coldest summer days on record in the eastern and central parts of the country mean fewer air conditioners are being used.
If you compare it with this year with the 20-year average, which is the thing that we look at for our planning, it's down some 31%.
Lower electric bills for consumers, but for public utilities, that spells layoffs and dividend cuts. Sales are down 60% at the Hawaiian Pool Company in Alexandria, Virginia. That means fewer jobs.
In a normal season, we would have about 25 employees. This year, we're running 10 to 12 employees.
As far south as Atlanta, at this amusement park, cool weather on the last week of the school vacation.
This is one of our largest weeks of the year before school goes back, and we'll probably be down about 40% today with this overcast.
In some farm areas, tomatoes aren't ripening, and the slower growth of other crops raises the danger of higher food prices.
The fact that it has been cooler than normal can mean that some of those crops are going to be endangered with an early frost.
There may be one bumper crop in the months ahead, bankruptcies in businesses that were frozen out by the chilly summer. Irving R. Levine, NBC News, Washington.
And when we come back, we'll meet a woman who likes life in the fast lane.
Boy, I keep reading about this vitamin in vegetables, beta-carotene.
Me too. In fact, I'm having some right now.
What, vegetables for breakfast?
No.
The latest news is, now there's a brand new way to get some beta-carotene. Whole grain Total.
Of course.
Total is the only leading cereal that has beta-carotene. Plus 12 other vitamins and minerals.
With this news about beta-carotene, I'm eating Total.
Of course.
It's Domino's Pepperoni Passion. Now get irresistible pepperoni pizza deals starting at $6.99. Yes, $6.99. Call for Domino's Better Than Ever Pizza with more cheese, tender, tastier crust, and lots of pepperoni.
Nobody knows like Domino's.
Domino's Pepperoni Passion. Deals starting at $6.99.
Of all the things around your house that need batteries, there's one thing that needs a good, fresh battery most of all. See your Allstate agent for a free home fire safety brochure. And please, check the battery in your smoke detector often.
Look, I'm eating corn on the cob, thanks to Super Poly Grip in the easy-to-use pump.
Super Poly Grip holds so tight, many denture wearers can enjoy more of their favorite foods, even corn on the cob. Super Poly Grip.
Finally tonight, a woman who is giving race car drivers a run for their money in one of the most macho of sports, stock car racing. From Oxford, Georgia, Kenley Jones reports on a lady who lives her life on the road.
Twice a day for 16 years, Pamela Ballard has driven a bus full of students to and from school.
Bye, Jessica. Have a nice weekend.
So when the weekend comes, how does she relax? By whizzing around a racetrack at close to 100 miles an hour.
You don't have to think about bills, jobs, or anything else. It's just you and that car.
And just you and your competitors, most of whom are men, and some of whom still don't cotton to the idea of women drivers on the racetrack.
They don't mind you racing with them, but if you beat them, sometimes it becomes a different story.
What do they do?
Oh, every now and then you get bumped if you get in the way.
She believes that's what caused this crash 2 years ago, which totaled her race car and cracked 3 of her ribs.
He gave me a few choice words that night.
Oh, he did? After the accident?
After the accident, that he didn't think I should have been there.
When she's not driving a school bus or driving her race car, Pam can usually be found working on the car.
Great.
It's a family affair. Her father, Jim, was a race car driver, and now Pam, who is divorced, is helping her son, Lane, build his own car. She's a little nervous about that.
I think he's fixing to put me through what I put my parents through.
Bye. Have a nice weekend.
What about the parents of those kids on the school bus? Aren't they nervous? Pam says she's convinced them that her experience on the track makes her a safer driver off of it.
The quickness, that you're always got to be alert on the racetrack, and that also helps out because on a school bus, you got to be alert at all times.
When this lady starts her engine, her passengers are in safe hands, and gentlemen should be prepared to take a back seat. Kenley Jones, NBC News, Oxford, Georgia.
I think they do. That's nightly news for this Saturday night. I'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.
Dick Cavett comeback from the brink of suicide on Entertainment Tonight.
They were identical twins with not-so-identical tastes.
You're not wearing those.
All they could agree on was Mazda Mania 2, the summer's hottest sales event, where an MX-3 can be yours for as little as $11,600. It's hard to agree on everything.
That's a good color on you.
But no one should miss Mazda Mania 2. Get a Mazda MX-3 for as little as $11,600 now.
I like the sound of a big juicy steak. Sizzler, sounds good. Throw in a salad now, that sounds great. Sizzler, yeah, sounds good.
Listen to this. A juicy sirloin steak and our all-you-can-eat salad bar. Two big favorites together for a short time for just $6.99.
Live from the Channel 4 News Storm Center, this is a Channel 4 News Update.
Good evening, I'm Jerry Helfman. Hurricane Andrew intensifying tonight. A hurricane watch is now in effect for Florida. That means you should be prepared. We're going to take your phone calls for the next hour. We'll give you the numbers to call in just a minute, but first let's go right to meteorologist Brian Norcross. Brian.
Okay, Jerry, we're going to go ahead and check the coordinates quickly here just to kind of get you started on where the storm is, and then we're going to go live to the Hurricane Center. You see the storm 615 miles away, 25.9 north, 70.4 west, 100-mile-an-hour winds at the latest advisory. Now, we have meteorologist Jerry Jarrell standing by at the National Hurricane Center, and we're going to check in with him in just a second to see if, since this advisory at 5 o'clock, we have any either decrease in pressure or increase in wind, because both of those would indicate intensifying hurricane. Now let's go to Dr. Jarrell.
Good evening. Hurricane Andrew is about 600 miles due east of Miami. It's moving west at about 15 miles per hour. Maximum winds are about 100 miles per hour, and a hurricane warning is in effect for the northwestern Bahamas, and a hurricane watch is in effect for the Florida coast from Titusville south through the Keys. Residents of this area are advised to keep abreast of events. This is Jerry Jarrell from the National Hurricane.
All right, Jerry, we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. What they do at the top of every hour so that all stations around the state or in the affected areas can take it is they have one feed that everybody takes, and then we'll go back and we'll be able to talk to them directly. Obviously, the numbers and the information he gave you the same as I just gave you, and these are the numbers off of the 5 o'clock advisory. Now, in about 45 minutes, we'll have updated information, and we'll have that during this program. But let's go ahead once again and go over the watch and warning areas. First of all, hurricane warnings, and what a hurricane warning means is hurricane conditions are expected within the area in red there, the northern Bahamas, including Nassau, Freeport, that's Eleuthera, Great Abaco, and Andros Island here, all expecting hurricane conditions before the end of the day tomorrow. In other words, within about 24 hours. Hurricane watch in effect from Titusville down, including Dade and Broward County and including the Keys and out to the Dry Tortugas. That in effect now, a hurricane watch, meaning the hurricane conditions are possible within the next 36 hours. And indeed, at the speed that Andrew is coming and the distance out in front of the storm that the winds are, we would expect the hurricane conditions to arrive here sometime midday on Monday, and possibly even tropical storm conditions very early in the day on Monday. So tomorrow is the day that all preparations need to take place. All right, we have phone numbers for you to call, both here and at agencies that can help you out to do your planning here. Let's go back to Jerry for that.
All right, Brian, we're going to be with you for the next hour, so get a pen and a piece of paper. We're going to give you some very important phone numbers. They are very important. You will want to write them down. For the latest recorded information on Hurricane Andrew, you can call Channel 4 News in Dade 358-8000, and then you'll dial a code 4444. In Broward, you call 731-7000. Again, the same code, 4444. Rumor Control opened up its phone lines less than an hour ago. In Dade, that number is 596-8735. In Broward, 357-8454. And in Monroe County, 1-800-427-8340. And as we said, we will take your questions live right now in the Channel 4 Help Center. Those numbers you can call right now for answers to any questions you might have. In Dade, dial 379-HELP. And in Broward, that number is 523-HELP. Now that Andrew is a hurricane, there are lots of questions. Should we prepare? What about our pets? What do we need? Time to answer some of those questions. Brian, what is the #1 thing we should be doing right now?
Right now, Jerry, we should be deciding what we're going to do tomorrow to prepare. Where it depends on what people have done already. Of course, what we've encouraged people to do is to prepare early in the hurricane season so that right in advance of a storm, you don't get caught in the crush with everyone else. But obviously, most folks have not done that. So tonight's mission is to make your phone calls, know what you're going to have to do, plan to get to bed early tonight so you can get up at first light tomorrow and get these things underway. If you have elderly friends or relatives, you need to help them out. Get that all done first. You have to take care of your boat. Do that as early as you possibly can, because the boating situation here in South Florida is a nightmare, and it's going to be a horrible day tomorrow out on the water. Not because the weather is going to be so bad, because so many boats are going to be there. So tonight, the action is to learn based on what we tell you tonight, and also what you happen to know if you have our hurricane preparedness booklet, what you're going to have to do tomorrow. Now, let me say something about those phone numbers. Let's go over what those phone numbers are for. I think that's important too, Jerry. First of all, I have a message for somebody at Southern Bell and the people with the Real Talk yellow pages, okay? The numbers that we gave out, the 358-8000 and the 731-7000 in Dade and Broward, are very, very busy, and we're having trouble, folks, getting in to update them. They are updated now. But if you folks at Southern Bell and with Real Talk, the people that we work with on that, would get together so that our access lines are not busy, if you would, as an emergency basis, make that happen, within the sound of my voice, can you hear me? Make that happen. We would very much appreciate it so we can update them on a timely basis and a lot less work for us. Rumor Control is for any questions you have about your particular situation. If you need help from the government agency in evacuating, they'll only help you if you desperately need help. If you are ambulatory and you can move yourself, you're going to have to do it yourself. But if you have some medical condition, you're elderly, you can't do it, that's what those rumor control numbers are for, okay? In fact, let's go ahead and put them up one more time. These are the rumor control numbers for any kind of help you need, if you've heard about something, anything, but mainly for people that need help. And also, once the evacuations start, these are the numbers you're going to call in order to know where you're going to go to a shelter if you don't know that already. And in Dade County, of course, you don't, because that list hasn't been put out yet. But anyway, that's what those numbers are for. Don't call them unnecessarily. Call us and see if we can't help you. But if you have to, call them, and they're going to have people standing by to answer your calls. Although I talked to Monroe County, by the way, and they have been flooded, and everybody is just doing their best out there. I think the best thing to do for now is stay with us here, and let's see if we can't get a lot of the questions out of the way.
Brian, when does a hurricane watch become a hurricane warning, and what's the difference? Okay,
in this case, the warning is going to be issued if nothing changes. The hurricane warning will be issued for us tomorrow morning, probably at 5 a.m. when the 5 a.m. advisory comes out. And I say if nothing changes, in other words, if the storm continues on its course, there's no reason to think, by the way, that it is not going to continue on the path it's on right now. The winds will probably increase a little bit by that time. The difference between a watch and a warning is a watch means hurricane conditions are possible. A warning means that the situation has come to the point that hurricane conditions are likely. And so when the warning is issued, and again, we expect that to be tomorrow morning, if nothing changes, that means that the National Hurricane Center believes it very likely that in the area where the warnings are issued, that the conditions will deteriorate to hurricane force. Now, I want to look at that one more time, because you see the watch is a big area like this. When the hurricane warning is issued, it won't be issued over that large an area. It'll be some segment of that area. It may be from West Palm Beach to Key West. It may be from Miami to Titusville, depending on what little deviation the storm makes as it moves in our direction.
And Brian, what about evacuations? When do those start occurring? As soon as the warning is issued?
As soon as the emergency managers actually issue an evacuation alert or evacuation order. And the evacuation won't begin tonight. Now, normally, unfortunately, it's a very unfortunate situation, actually. We have very bad timing on this storm. Because if everything was the way we would ideally like it, we would start evacuating during a hurricane watch, because it can take a lot of time to move people. As a matter of fact, we are suggesting tonight that if you live in an evacuation zone, in just a minute we're going to go over all the evacuation zones to give you a general idea of where they are. If you live in one of those zones, we suggest you get out tonight. Not to go to a hurricane shelter, because they won't be available to you, but to go to a friend or relative in a safe location inland. But the evacuation order, in this case, based on the timing of this storm, will be probably in the morning. What's going to happen is the warning will come out about 5 a.m. The emergency managers will meet probably about 6 a.m. with the county officials, and then the evacuation order will be put into effect after that, probably about 7 a.m. That will open all the shelters that are going to be open. We'll be announcing which shelters are open, and the whole process will start, including what the police involvement would be. And Brian, the shelters, just to point out, they are not for everyone. It's a last resort for people who have no place else to go. Yeah, we can't stress that enough. If there's any place else that you can imagine yourself being, a hurricane shelter would be the last place that you would want to go. Because you just have to think about it here. The hurricane shelters are available to people that have no relatives, have no friends, and it's very likely for most people in South Florida that's not the place you're going to want to be for potentially several days. Because if we have a hurricane that affects us directly right in this area here, we could have roads closed, we could have causeways blocked. Even if we're just on the fringe of it, you could be prohibited from getting back to where you live for some time, and that means that you would be stuck in a hurricane shelter where there is no air conditioning, or there would be no air conditioning. The food would be just the best the Red Cross can provide, because people work very hard, but we have the potential here of evacuating hundreds of thousands of people in maybe as many as 500,000 people, maybe even a few 100,000 more than that as I add them up in my head, here in South Florida, both in Dade and Broward. So it's a lot of people, and the fewer that can go into the shelters, the better, because the shelter space we have won't handle even 25% of those people. Brian, if my power goes out, I have no television, how do I find out about the storm? All right, we're working with Y100. That's 100.7 on your FM dial. Y100, 100.7. I'm sure you're familiar with the radio station, especially if you're younger. If you're a little older, well, you might want to go ahead and find it. They're our radio station, and as soon as we get in a threatening situation here, we have a direct line to Y100, and they will be covering the storm situation just as we are here on Channel 4, and we will be on Y100 as well as on Channel 4 here. So if your power goes out, your cable goes out, Y100, you're in your car, Y100 will be the place to be, because we'll be on with continuous coverage on the radio as well as on television. Okay, now as we said, the phone lines are open to take your calls during this whole hour. They're ringing off the hook in the Channel 4 Help Center. Lots of questions, so let's get to them. Brian Allen's manning those phones. Brian.
Hi, Jerry. We've got a couple things we'd like to pass on to you. First of all, involving the Florida Keys right now. Still the hurricane watch is there, but we have this that came in from Monroe County Emergency Management. State campgrounds in the Keys have been closed. And Monroe County Emergency Management has asked for voluntary evacuation of private campgrounds, and they're asking campers to either leave the Keys or move into more substantial quarters for tonight. And one important reminder to boaters in the Keys right now, a big reminder that the drawbridges in the Keys at Jewfish Creek and Snake Creek will be locked down at the time of a hurricane warning as soon as that comes out, most likely tomorrow morning, and there will be no more boat traffic allowed through those two drawbridges at that time. So you better get working on that boat tonight. And also, if you're planning a trip to the Keys, you might as well just go ahead and say no to that. A lot of questions coming into the Help Center so far here today. What is my evacuation area? That's been a big one so far. If you are not sure where you live in Dade or Broward County and if you have to evacuate for the potential of what we see coming our way, call us here, 379-HELP in Dade County, 523-HELP in Broward County. Is Brian Norcross up there for a second? Brian?
With you.
Yeah, we got a very interesting question for you. This is something that was never dawned on me. What do we know about Dade County mass transit as far as a possible shutdown, and also the airport when it would shut down?
Okay, Dade County Mass Transit is all part of the evacuation plan, as is Broward County Mass Transit. So when the evacuation order is put in effect, the Dade County bus system, the school buses in both Dade and Broward, will go on a whole different kind of pattern in order to evacuate people from those zones. And we'll be announcing in general where you can pick up the buses, and they'll be going up and down the beach and to Key Biscayne and whatnot, and then dropping people off at shelters. But again, I want to stress that people should not depend on the mass transit or depend on the government in any way in this situation. Let the government people deal with people that have nobody else. And if you can take care of yourself, if you can drive to where you're going to spend the time during the hurricane, that's what should happen, and you should do that. Okay, but the point is that the whole schedule will be disrupted. And Jerry, let me do one more thing here. Let's re-emphasize. Brian, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can, Brian.
All right, you said the Jewfish Creek, and what was the other bridge that's going to be locked down?
It was the Jewfish Creek and Snake Creek bridges.
Okay. All right, in the Keys, obviously they're locking down the bridges because, as you know, there's only one road in and out. The same thing is going to happen in Dade and Broward County, and it's going to happen sometime during the day tomorrow, because the hurricane warning will likely be issued first thing in the morning, and that means that they're going to lock down the bridges so people can get off of the beaches. Now, obviously, we have in Dade County the Julia Tuttle Causeway, but in Broward County, we have all opening bridges. So all your actions with the boats are going to happen very, very early. I can't stress that enough. If you've got to move your boat, you've got to do it very, very early tomorrow, because they run the risk, if the evacuation starts bogging down of getting people off of the beach areas, they're going to close those bridges, and you're not going to have access to those waterways any longer. So plan to get up very early and get that underway. All right, Brian, let's go back to you.
Let me ask you one more question, Brian, because we're having a little bit of a phone problem down here getting these calls on the air. We've been getting quite a few calls from elderly residents over on Miami Beach, and they're wondering, is it too soon for them to take off tonight and not be caught in what could become a pretty much gridlock situation tomorrow morning?
I would suggest that anyone, not just elderly people, anyone that has a convenient place to go, or maybe even a slightly inconvenient place to go ahead and get in the car and go. Why not? Go have a little vacation tonight and know where you're going to be and that you're in a safe place. In other words, don't be part of the problem. And the bottom line is that everybody that's on the road doing anything tomorrow, and especially late tomorrow, is part of the problem and not part of the solution. So we want to encourage that, it's only 7:15 here tonight. It's not even dark out there yet. Go ahead and tend to your affairs. If you live in an apartment, get all your plants, your furniture, anything outside that can blow around. Get it inside, secure your place the best you can, and go ahead and leave and go visit a friend maybe that you haven't seen in a while over in the western sections of the county. Brian?
Okay, thanks, Brian. Again, like Brian emphasized, boats are critical right now to get those moving as soon as possible, because as Brian said, once the warning is issued, bridges will be locked down. That's a big problem for Broward and also for the Keys. We're going to come back here down into the Help Center in a couple more minutes and take some calls from people out there. We should have our little phone line kink worked out here in a couple of minutes. Jerry?
Okay, Brian, thank you. Now, we're going to go live to a supermarket in just a minute, but Brian, I have another question for you. I'm going to repeat a question, a statement really, that I'm hearing people say all afternoon. Everyone I talk to on the phone, in person, they say that Andrew is 600 miles away. This is overkill. They say it's not going to hit us. I'm not going to do anything yet.
Okay.
What do you say to those people?
I say that it may not hit us with its full force. Okay, I would be very surprised if we don't get some effect from this hurricane. We are not predicting that the hurricane is coming right over Dade and Broward County. What we're saying is that based on the meteorology of it, with this high pressure system to the north, all of the computer indications that have handled the storm very well are bringing Andrew right there, right up next to the coast, and over the coast, as a matter of fact, right over top of South Florida and into the Gulf over the next 2 days. So it really comes down to, what do you want to risk? Do you want to say, I'm lazy, I'm not going to take care of it, and risk potentially your life and certainly your property, or do you want to do the thing that you have to do to safeguard yourself.
Brian, does a percentage go along with a hurricane warning? You say that if things continue, there might be a hurricane warning early in the morning. Is there a percentage that goes along with that, so much of a chance that we're going to get this hurricane?
Well, I guess I can answer that by saying, if I said there was a 40% chance that your life was going to be in danger on Monday, would you do something? If I said it was a 30% chance, would you do something? How about was it just a 20% chance? Obviously, for most people, if I said there was a 5% chance that your life is going to be threatened on Monday, and you should take action tomorrow to sort of mitigate that chance, most people would take action with a 5% chance, a 1 in 20 chance. So, no. A hurricane warning, to answer your question directly, a hurricane warning means that the people at the National Hurricane Center believe that the hurricane is likely. Now, within the area that the warning is put out for. Now, does that mean that the whole area is going to get the full brunt of the storm? No, because in actual fact, a hit within 65 miles they consider a direct hit because we just can't predict it that well. The fact is that when the warning is issued, and I feel certain that we are going to have a hurricane warning here tomorrow. We don't see any indication with this storm that it is deviating in any way, that it's going to be close enough that the warning will be issued. So the bottom line is that we think it's going to be close enough that there is no choice now but than to prepare.
Okay, Brian. Channel 4's Ari Odzer is live at a supermarket in Fort Lauderdale. Ari, are folks taking this threat seriously?
Well, Jerry, it seems like they're doing exactly that. Judging by how crowded this parking lot is, the Publix supermarket here at 17th Street in Fort Lauderdale, these people are definitely getting the message. This supermarket is completely packed inside with people buying all the necessities that someone would need for a hurricane. The management wouldn't let us inside with our cameras, but I can tell you that the shelves are almost barren of all the things that you'd think are essential. Bottled water, canned goods, all those sort of things are selling out here rapidly. Now, over across town in downtown Fort Lauderdale, where the Emergency Operations Center is, the people over there, the police officials from the county, the emergency preparedness folks, they are all preparing for a possible worst-case scenario, a visit from Andrew.
Certainly keeping all the staff and all of our local people well aware of this and gearing them up just in case this happens.
Now, in case this happens, who's most at risk here of hurricane damage? I'm assuming people who live right along the beach.
Yes, that's always our primary target because the tidal surge associated with a hurricane would hit the beach first, and that's where the most vulnerable part of our county is. With the heavy population along the coastline, we'd like to get those people as well informed and, if necessary, evacuated as quickly as possible.
What should people who live along the beach in those high-rise condos, for instance, know about a hurricane approaching?
Well, I think the most important thing they need to know is that they are vulnerable, and they need to have that plan. And they have to understand, as we've told them time and time again, that when a storm threatens, we expect that whole area to be cleared.
So if you live along the beach, be prepared to move when the authorities give the evacuation order. Bring your most important papers and medicines with you. Go to a Red Cross shelter or maybe to a friend's house, preferably west of Interstate 95. If you live in a trailer park, the experts say you are not safe no matter how far inland you might be located. So get yourself to a shelter. And boaters, get ready now to make a move. In Broward, head up the New River or make plans to dock your boat at an inland marina. Now, we're not trying to make anybody panic here, but there is still plenty of time to get all the necessities you need to buy, but get there early. Now, as I said, this Publix over here is completely packed. Go to your nearest grocery store now, as soon as you can, to get the essentials that you may need to ride this storm out. And as everybody is saying, as Brian has been saying, make sure that you get to a shelter or to a friend's house or whatever if you live in an evacuation area. Jerry?
Ari, any plans that you're aware of for stores like Publix or Winn-Dixie or stores that are not traditionally open late or 24 hours? Are they going to be open later tonight or tomorrow night to accommodate this rush of people?
No, we haven't been able to have that question answered for us, Jerry, because the management ushered us out so quickly. But I will tell you this, that there are a number of 24-hour stores around Broward and Dade counties. Look for those stores. My guess would be that these stores would definitely be open later than normal. They are just simply packed with people. It's like the day before Thanksgiving over here.
And of course, if the management hasn't spoken to you, then we don't know if they have enough to accommodate all these people, enough water and enough supplies.
Well, before they booted us out of here, one of the managers did tell me that they were almost out of water. The warehouse, he said, the Publix warehouse was out of water. And I looked around myself a little bit, and the shelves were practically barren. So I'm assuming that other supermarkets must be feeling the same sort of heat from customers right now.
Okay, Ari, thanks very much. Now back to Brian Norcross, who's going to take us to the Hurricane Center. Brian.
Okay, Jerry, let me stress the water issue. Water is probably the most important thing you can have. If the water becomes contaminated because the power goes off, there's a water main break, water is the most inefficient, heaviest thing to get. And let me suggest that what you do is, if you haven't gotten water, go out and get big jugs that you can sanitize and fill with regular old tap water before the storm arrives. Service Merchandise, I know, has big jugs. If anybody else has them for sale, feel free to call us here at Channel 4. You have the Help Center numbers, and we'll put them up again. And let us know if you have a place that people can buy big jugs, because I know I had trouble finding that. Now, let's go down to Jerry Jarrell at the National Hurricane Center. Jerry, we've been showing them the 5 o'clock information, 100-mile-an-hour winds, moving west at 15, and are right on track. Any change in the track or the speed at this point?
No, it's holding steady, and every hour is getting it 15 miles closer to us. And I don't see any reason to think that's going to change appreciably. Of course, we're not targeting this area, but it's getting closer to the coastline.
Right. The idea is that this high-pressure ridge at the top, I mean, everything is sort of fluid here within a little bit of flexibility, and I guess it doesn't take much of a difference, much of a variation to make quite a difference when it gets to the coast. That's right.
A few degrees now in direction could hit on either end of this watch area.
Now, we've been saying, and I want to hear from you guys down there, that the anticipated point to put out the warning would be first thing in the morning, everything staying the same with the rate of advance of the storm here, and the speed and everything else being basically the same. Is that correct, or would you put it out sooner?
Our thinking is on the fast end of that speed is that we'll have to do it at 5 a.m. on the 5 a.m. advisory. If it's a little slower, then we'll probably do it on the next advisory, which would be at 8 a.m.
All right, but certainly tomorrow morning, we anticipate that somewhere on the Florida East Coast a hurricane warning will be issued.
That's correct.
All right. Everybody, and Jerry has asked this question because we've had a lot of viewers. I know you get this kind of question. Surely something is going to happen to make this thing turn to the north. I've done my part to say that we don't see it here in the Storm Center. It's your turn to say what you feel. The likelihood is anything coming along here that is going to make this storm not affect Florida directly.
Well, we don't see anything. And Brian, the reason we do the watch is an area that we think the risk is big enough that you ought to be doing those things that people are doing and that some of your listeners are not doing, that you really ought to be laying in those supplies. The watch the risk is high enough to justify that.
Okay. All right, Jerry, we'll be back with you, and we appreciate the good work done there. Okay, Jerry Jarrell at the National Hurricane Center. Of course, we're in constant contact with them. Jerry.
Okay, Brian, thanks. Now, we want to answer all of your questions about preparing for a hurricane. We're going to take a quick break, but we're here until 8 o'clock, and we're going to take all your calls. We have the Help Center staffed with people waiting to hear from you. Those numbers, one more time, just dial 379-HELP in Dade and 523-HELP in Broward. We'll be right back.
Car and Driver has named it to its 10 best list 4 years in a row. Now, there's a Mitsubishi Eclipse you can lease for just $500 down and as little as $149 a month. But hurry, this Eclipse will soon disappear.
Test drive the Eclipse at your Dade Broward Mitsubishi Motors dealer today.
Blockbuster Video has all the hot summer hits, more hot new releases, and more copies of them. Rock-a-Doodle with Glenn Campbell, Bates and Tandy in Fried Green Tomatoes, Woody Harrelson in White Men Can't Jump, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, Mike Myers in Wayne's World. Rent 3 videos and get a free Wayne's World Collector's Cup and a coupon good for a free 16-ounce Pepsi at KFC. Come see what's in store for you now at Blockbuster Video.
At Bennigan's, we'll give you something you can't get anywhere else. Bennigan's Extra Special Treatment, guaranteed. And look what's coming now. Announcing Bennigan's new double-up deal. Our $18 dinner for 2. Share a fried cheese appetizer. From 6 meals, pick 2 like chicken pasta parmesan or chicken teriyaki. And split a brownie bottom pie. The double-up deal. Only $18 for 2 at Bennigan's.
Bennigan's brings more to the table than a great deal.
Your Hyundai dealer presents Make the Right Call with Earl Strom.
Today's matchup pits the Hyundai Elantra against the Toyota Corolla Deluxe. The Elantra's got more horsepower for a better running game. It's got more standard features, including no-cost service and maintenance. And Elantra costs almost $2,500 less after rebate. That's a foul on Toyota for reaching into your pocket.
The right call is Hyundai. See your nearest dealer and test drive an Elantra today.
The time now, 7:27. In just 2 minutes, we're going to open up our phone lines once again. Actually, I'm being told the phone lines are open in the Help Center. We have people down there taking your calls. Those numbers, once again, in Dade, 379-HELP, and in Broward, 523-HELP. Brian Allen's down there. We have a staff of people answering all of your hurricane questions. But first, let's check in with meteorologist Brian Norcross and a Hurricane Andrew update. Brian.
Okay, let's talk about evacuations, because really evacuation, I'll tell you what we'll do. Before we do that, I'm fooling the people up in the control room. Let's go ahead and give you the numbers in case now it's 7:30. You're just tuning in. We'll do this kind of quickly. If we can do the coordinates here first. All right, can we go back to the coordinates? Let's get that out of the way, and then we'll go to evacuations, because there's several things to say here. First of all, on the coordinates, 25.9 north, 70.4 west, winds at 100 miles an hour, moving west at 15, about 615 miles. That was 5 o'clock, so actually we're probably more like 585 miles, maybe 580 miles away from Miami at this point. Now, I wanted to do that first because I wanted to remind you that as this storm comes close to the coast, the thing that is the worst part of the storm, especially a 100 or 110 mile an hour storm, which this one will probably end up maybe even 115 miles an hour, is the storm surge out ahead of the storm. The computer is indicating that for the northern Bahamas, let me go to the next map here, where we have the hurricane warning in effect now, we could have 8 to 10 feet of storm surge. And what the storm surge is a mound of water that the hurricane scoops up and pushes out ahead of it. So when it hits the land, it washes over the land, and especially when it hits a coastline, because the bottom comes up and it forces that water up over the coast. And that's why we evacuate along the coast and anywhere where that water is going to be. And we know where that water is going to be because we have excellent computer projections of that. Now, let's go to the evacuation maps, and we'll start in Broward County. Now, we're being a little vague about evacuation here because the evacuation orders have not been given and probably won't be given until tomorrow morning, but I expect that evacuations will be ordered in both Dade and Broward and possibly in the Keys. We'll get to the Keys situation, which is different here in just a few minutes, but probably they will be ordered first thing in the morning, whether the hurricane warning is issued first thing or at 8 a.m. As soon as they can get the whole mechanism into effect, first thing tomorrow morning, I think we'll see an evacuation ordered. But if the question is here, we talked to Bob Sheets earlier, and they were treating the storm as Category 3 just in case. Let's go back. I want to go back to the Category 2 first. Treating it as Category 3 just in case it were to increase to that point. But I don't know yet because the order hasn't been given whether it's going to be treated as a Category 2 or a Category 3. So I want to show you what both the eventualities are. Category 2 evacuates east of the Intracoastal in North Broward. Then we come down here. This is Sunrise Boulevard here. And then we go down to 595, State Road 84, right in here. So we're back to Federal Highway in that area, in fact, a little beyond Federal Highway. And this is down in here is where the Fort Lauderdale Airport is. So this area, we actually come further in, and that's because the New River goes right through there, and the water will be pushed up the New River, and so there would be more flooding in that area than there would be further north and further south. In South Broward, it's right about Federal Highway. In North Broward, it's right at the Intercoastal. In Central Broward, right in here, it's a little further in around the New River. Now, if the storm is treated as a Category 3 and it's a Category 3 evacuation, we come all the way to Federal Highway, all the way through the county. All the way top to bottom is Federal Highway and east would be evacuated, and along the New River here, all the way to I-95, along Davie Boulevard, it's very, very low in that area. State Road 84, all along there, the whole Fort Lauderdale Airport area would be evacuated, and I assume that the flights would stop. It would be an interesting thing. Someone in the newsroom is watching. Maybe we can find out what their plans are up there at the Fort Lauderdale Airport in terms of evacuating that. Now let's go on to Dade County. Jerry, feel free to jump in here if I miss anything, okay? In Dade County, Key Biscayne and Miami Beach up to Sunny Isles, Golden Beach, all would be Surfside, all would be evacuated for a Category 1. Now, we feel certain it's going to be stronger than that, so let's go on now to Category 2 and 3, which includes all of the beaches as well as far inland in South Dade as US 1. Now, this intersection here as you folks that live in South Dane know well, is where the Turnpike and US 1 come together there around Caribbean. So everything to the east of that is evacuated. Then we get up in here and we get to Old Cutler Road. So everything east of Old Cutler until we get up to near downtown Miami, where it would become Bayshore Drive, and then Brickell Avenue, and then Biscayne Boulevard up to the county line. So everything east all the way along, once again, Biscayne Boulevard east of Biscayne, east of Brickell, east of Bayshore Drive, east of Old Cutler Road. Then we get in South Dade, and we're talking about east of US 1 and the Turnpike, which includes a large part, of course, of Cutler Ridge. Now to the Keys situation. And the Keys, we have not yet heard from Billy Wagner, who is at the National Hurricane Center, and I've paged him, as a matter of fact. I'm trying to get the final word here from Billy on what he's going to do, if he knows yet, and he may not. The deal is that in the Keys, for Category 1 and 2, no evacuation is ordered. If the storm is fairly certain to go north of the Keys, they may stay with a Category 2 evacuation. In other words, just putting people in safe spot in the Keys. Now, Brian Allen was telling you that they get people out of campgrounds, they get people off of boats, they get people out of mobile homes, they get people out of any place low-lying and unsafe, but they keep them in the Keys because it's safer in the Keys than it is to get caught up there around Lake Surprise on that little piece of highway that goes between Florida City and Key Largo. You don't want people caught in your car. So that would be the Category 2 mode, although I can tell you that if you live in the Keys and you have a place to go that's safe in Dade County, then come on up and let's get out of the Keys now in case a bigger evacuation is needed, and that would be the case if it is treated as a Category 3. Now let's go ahead and look at that situation, because what that is an almost unimaginable mess on the road there. From Key West all the way to Key Largo and Ocean Reef, everyone is evacuated in the Keys. Now, clearly everyone isn't going to go because not everyone could go. We couldn't get that many people out if we wanted to. But the good news, I think, that we're going to have a storm a little north of the Keys, although with the hurricane watch in effect, that means that the possibility exists that we are going to have to order tomorrow morning an evacuation for the Keys. But it's all at a possibility standpoint, and we're waiting on word from Billy Wagner and the folks at the Monroe County Emergency Management Office on what they're going to do, and Billy is down there right now working with Dr. Bob Sheets at the Hurricane Center to try and sort that out.
Brian, once again, a hurricane warning, if it's issued in the morning as you predict, that does not mean evacuate. We have to wait for an evacuation order. How and when will we know that's issued?
Okay, the evacuation order and the hurricane warning are two separate issues. The evacuation order would be issued, I suspect, in the morning, regardless of whether the hurricane warning is issued, unless the hurricane is making some kind of big deviation that we certainly don't expect. Just because of the amount of time it takes to evacuate people here in South Florida, we expect that the evacuation order will be issued first thing tomorrow morning. Exactly how much area would be covered immediately really has a lot to do with the speed of the hurricane. For instance, if the hurricane were to slow down, then the hurricane warning would not be put into effect, because if the hurricane were still out in here somewhere and not really affecting us yet and moving more slowly, they would want to be able to take time to know where to put the warning out so we don't overwarn. But it takes so long to evacuate the beaches, like 20 to 30 hours to evacuate Miami Beach and Key Biscayne, the same kind of numbers in Broward County, that clearly we would want to get that underway as soon as possible. I mean, an evacuation means getting in your car for most people and driving somewhere, and if the worst thing to happen is you drove and didn't have to, that would not be the worst thing you ever did in your life.
Brian, you talked about water being the most important thing to have. Now, if you don't have to evacuate and the stores are running out of water, somebody called and asked earlier, should they fill their bathtub with water?
Not only should you fill your bathtub, you should seal the drain in your bathtub. Well, if you do not have any at home, what I suggest you do is go out and at your nearest hardware store, and I'm sure that most Home Depots and other sort of hardware stores will be open in the morning, get some of that bathtub caulk, or maybe check with your neighbors to keep you from having to go out in that mess of the big crowd, and see if somebody doesn't have a tube of bathtub caulk. And seal the drain in your bathtub. Put the stopper down in, seal around that, spread it all out, and then maybe put another stopper over that, seal that up real good, and then put the water in your bathtub, because what you want to do is keep that in there for a long time. You don't want it seeping out, which you know most bathtubs will do. And there's two reasons for that. Bathtub water normally you wouldn't want to drink, because it would be very difficult to sterilize your tub very well, although it would not be a bad idea to go ahead and try, just in case you do have to boil it to drink it later on. But You may very well need water for sanitation if a water main should break. If for whatever reason you can't use the toilet facilities in your house, you may have to use that to manually do that, or just to wash off or anything else, and the bathtub water would be good for that. So seal up the bathtub, fill it up with water. Now, you don't need to do that tonight. This is something you would do depending on the speed of the storm, either late tomorrow night or more likely early on Monday morning.
Okay, Brian, once again, we want to give you the phone numbers in our help center for any questions that you might have. In Dade County, you can call 379-HELP, and in Broward, 523-HELP. The help center is staffed, and they're taking your calls right now. Well, a hurricane watch is also in effect in Nassau, and that's where Channel 4's Ed Odell is standing by live via telephone. Ed, what can you tell us?
Jerry, actually, we have a hurricane warning here in Nassau. I'm on the island of New Providence at Cable Beach, a cove in Cable Beach. It's blue waters and blue sky over here right now. It's the sun is still up. It's very beautiful. But the northwestern Bahama islands of New Providence, Grand Bahama, Abaco, Andros, and Eleuthera are in a hurricane warning. Now, what that means for the 245,000-plus residents of those islands, they are being told to hurry, and I repeat, hurry, all hurricane precautions. They're warned of a storm surge of more than 12 feet. Now, that's what the Bahamian Weather Service is saying at this time. They're talking about coastal flooding of roads. They're warning of damages to homes, the roofs, doors, and boat docks and small boats. Now, boats have been warned to stay in harbor after midnight tonight. I talked to a police spokesman earlier about tourists. Tourists are being told here in Nassau to return to their hotels tomorrow no later than 4 o'clock. But by my calculations, by what the Weather Service said over here, that the storm is probably less than 400 miles away from the northwestern Bahamian Islands at this point. In about 20 hours, we could expect to see some storm surge as some action from the storm, as the gale force winds, the Bahamian Weather Service predicting is like 85 miles out, extending out from the center of the storm. Now, they don't have any evacuations at all here in Nassau. Basically, they don't really have a lot of places to go. Tourists are still arriving in the islands, though I did visit with some at Miami International Airport on the way over here who were a little concerned about what they were going into. You see people still bathing out here on the ocean right now, but I can imagine that tomorrow as the skies darken, they will be even much more concerned. Bahamians are beginning to worry, and you can tell that because they're beginning to hit the stores themselves. We're calling radio stations asking for directions of what they should do. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that they are telling them to do. And oddly enough, they are sitting down among themselves trying to remember the names of the last major storms that hit the Bahamian Islands. So that's what's basically happening right now in Nassau. Jerry?
Ed, at 5 o'clock, I heard you talking to my colleague, Jose, and you told him that people were really laying back and didn't seem terribly worried about this. When when the watch went to a warning, did you see a change in attitudes?
There was definitely a change because that was also a time that it was getting around a little bit more. People aren't listening to the radios and paying attention to it as much as South Floridians seem to be doing. As time goes by, you see more and more concern. I really think the police are telling people to be back in the hotels, tourists to be back in the hotels at 4 o'clock. This is what the duty officer here in Nassau had to say. But by my calculations and talking to a few other people, that storm, they're going to start feeling some serious effects over here probably around 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So they're really not getting the information out. As this new warning hits, also a lot of time is passing, and people are picking up on it more and more. And so, yeah, they are, you can see a change as the hours tick by here.
And, of course, at some point, if you want to leave, it gets too late to leave.
It does get too late. Again, I think tomorrow morning might be a time as people get up and begin to see and maybe hear, and there's a little bit more concern when the hotel doorman isn't there because he's home taking care of his own place, that you might see a little more anxious things happening at the airport. The airport customs people told me they were not shutting down the airport until sometime tomorrow. So I think tomorrow morning will be a time when people begin to get very anxious.
Okay, Ed, thanks very much. Well, Channel 4 is the place to be for the most up-to-date information on Hurricane Andrew. We're going to take a quick break, then come back and take more of your phone calls. Don't go away.
It's stupendous. It's colossal. It's really big. It's McDonald's 79-cent Big Meal Deal. Buy a medium Coke and a large fry and get your choice of a Big Mac, McChicken sandwich, or a quarter pounder with cheese for only 79 cents. It's the 79-cent Big Meal Deal, now appearing at participating McDonald's.
I never saw anything like that before. The perfect parents.
Life is not a game.
The perfect kids.
He followed me home.
The perfect family for Mazda Mania 2, the summer's premier sales event. Now get $1,000 cash back from Mazda on a Mazda MPV. Don't miss these gargantuan values.
It's back!
Don't miss Mazda Mania 2. Get $1,000 cash back on a new Mazda MPV now.
We've been telling folks for some time now about the fresh squeezed taste of Tropicana Pure Premium Orange Juice. However, there's a certain segment of the population who prefer their juice the way Mom used to make it, full of juicy bits of real orange. For those folks, there's Pure Premium Home Style. So if you like juicy bits, no other major brand comes closer to this than this. Tropicana Pure Premium Home Style. No matter which you prefer, with juicy bits or without, you just can't pick a better juice than Tropicana.
I believe babe is a four-letter word. I believe that the person who said winning isn't everything never won anything.
I believe sweat is sexy.
I don't believe in liposuction.
I believe 70 is a long way from old.
I believe you should go big or stay home.
At Lady Foot Locker, we believe there's an athlete in all of us.
It's time to pay attention. Tropical Storm Andrew is getting stronger. The Channel 4 weather team is on top of the situation and ready to tell you everything you need to know. With hourly updates and complete coverage on Channel 4 News, we'll make sure you know every move Andrew makes. For facts fast on Tropical Storm Andrew, make sure you're watching the Channel 4 weather team.
Okay, I've just gotten off the phone with Billy Wagner, who is the emergency director for Monroe County, and that's the Keys, of course. And now I have information for folks with interest in the Keys and in the Keys. First of all, no tourists should go to the Keys at all. Nobody planning a trip to the Keys should go if you do not live in the Keys. If you're watching us tonight and you are a tourist and you don't live there, we want you out of the Keys tonight. Make your plans. We don't care if you have a reservation for tonight. Go talk to your hotel, check out, and come on back north into Dade and Broward County. Don't be part of the problem tomorrow. Now, the anticipated sequence of events here, and first of all, and the other thing is that anyone that has a boat and can start your marine plans, boaters in the Keys are a little better about this, I think, than boaters in Dade and Broward County of having a plan. Go ahead and start implementing those as you can here. We still have a little bit of light left. Go ahead and start that action so that you don't get caught down there tomorrow. Now, the bottom line is, a few minutes ago I told you that we were unclear whether we were going to go under a Category 1 and 2 type plan or a Category 3 where the whole Keys are evacuated. We are going under a Category 2 plan at this point, which means the whole Keys will not be evacuated, but shelters in the middle and upper Keys will be open for people in mobile homes, people that live on boats, people that live in low-lying areas, in campgrounds and can't get out. There will be shelters opening tomorrow, and in the morning here, we'll give you information of exactly when and where that's going to happen, but you can plan on having shelters, middle and upper Keys, open tomorrow, and that will probably happen about noon tomorrow, which should give you plenty of time. And all this is happening because the anticipated location of landfall is far enough north that the Keys would be on the generally considered weak side of the storm, or the left side, as we discussed earlier. So very important for the people in the Keys, no general evacuation, but you're going to want to go to a safe place and have a plan to do that by tomorrow afternoon. Jerry, you had a question?
Brian, while you're talking about evacuations, we should make a point about pets. You cannot bring your pets to a public shelter. What do you do with them?
Well, okay, a very difficult problem. We have a whole bunch of different situations here. Let's say you live in a house in an evacuation zone and you're going to evacuate. Let's hope you can take your pets to your friend's house where you're going for the storm. That would be the best possible thing. If you have no place to go except to go to a public shelter, then you're going to have to make arrangements for your pet at your home. And what we suggest you do is you pick the garage, you pick an internal room in the house that has the least number of windows. If you have to put it in a room that maybe has furniture or has a good floor, you get the furniture out of the room, you put plastic on the floor, you do what you can to give a place for the pet to stay through the storm, and the most secure place in your home that you can find. Don't tranquilize the pet, and give it obviously lots of food and water, because you may not be able to get back there for a few days. You want to be able to give it a chance to fend for itself in case something were to happen to your house, if the window were to break. If the pet were to get out, that may not necessarily be the worst thing that could happen. So those are the two things. Now, for people that live in condos, it's the same thing. You cannot take your pet with you. And don't let your pet, as much as you may love your pet, do not let your pet mean that you're going to stay in your apartment if you're in an evacuation zone. It just isn't worth it as much as it seems like it may be. Your pet is going to be fine if you just make a room for it, you put the plastic on the floor. Even if you lock it in the bathroom, the pet ain't going to like it, but the pet's going to be okay, and you're going to be better off evacuating if the order is given for your area.
Okay, Brian, the phones in our help center are ringing off the hook, and of course we can very often benefit from other people's questions. Let's go to Brian Allen. Brian, what are people asking?
Well, Jerry, we've got some interesting questions coming in. First of all, let me dispel one myth right away. We have a lot of people, there was an old story a long time ago that during a tornado or a hurricane that you open a window in the house to equalize pressure. That is absolutely the worst thing you can do. Number one, we would hope by now that you're at least in the process of either A, you've got shutters installed so that you just go ahead and bolt everything shut, or B, you do have your plywood cut and that you can at least go ahead and board up your windows. We don't want you opening any type of window whatsoever. Some interesting things, people having construction done on your house. If you have like loose 2x4s, 1x8s, even roof tile out there, you've got to get all that secured. That, in a wind of 75 miles an hour, even 50 miles an hour, will just go hurtling through the air. Things in your yard as far as debris, if you've cut trees and things like that, do not leave that out either. Again, and if you're in the process right now, do not go outside and try to trim those limbs back, because it's not going to be picked up. And again, that will become, once again, just an object hurling through the air. For your pool, at least drop the pool level 1 foot and add extra chlorine into your pool as well, because you never know what you're going to find in there once you get back, and at least if you can really shock the pool, you'll stand a better chance as far as the disinfection goes when we come back. Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Can somebody use their hot water heater?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you speak?
If they have a valve to close it off, can they use that for drinking?
Okay.
That's a good point. Brian, are you still there?
Yeah, but I couldn't make out what the question was.
Okay, one of the volunteers wanted to know if you've got a hot water heater that has the valve on the outside to dispense water, can you go ahead and still use that water? Say you get cut off because you've got, 50, 60 gallons in your hot water heater?
Well, you would be able to use most of it, although when it gets to the bottom, a lot of hot water heaters have a lot of sediment in them. But you'd be able to use, most of that water. That's a good thought sort of down the road. But what I'd prefer to see people do is go ahead and put water in bottles. Because the other thing is, here's the other issue. Let me take back what I said now that I think about an answer to that. The way a hot water heater works is the pressure of the incoming city water is what pushes the water out of the hot water heater. So if the incoming city water is contaminated, you're not going to get much pressure out, although you could take what comes out the bottom, I guess. Yes, you would have access to some of that. But you would have to remember to close your incoming water before it ever got contaminated. Okay?
Okay, thanks. That's what he was talking about, was the drain valve right then and there. Yes, we got another question here. Go ahead.
Okay. If you live in a non-evacuation area, and you have a canal behind your house, should you be concerned?
Yes, definitely be concerned. Brian, I don't know if you heard the question or not. If you still live in a non-evacuation area and you've got a canal behind your house, we're still talking about storm surge.
Well, okay, well, two issues here. One is, and also a lake, Jerry points out, a lake behind your house. We have a lot of people living on canals and lakes out of the evacuation zone, in other words, well inland. Well, Brian, I know you did a story on this just recently. The fact is we have two different issues. If you live near the coast, on one of the canals, for instance, the Coral Gables canals or the canals in Fort Lauderdale, that water gets pushed up the canals by the storm surge, and certainly that's going to flood. But there is no presumption here at all that outside of the evacuation zones that we're not going to have flooding. Right. As you know, when was it? Just last October, we had tremendous flooding in western Broward from heavy rain, and hurricanes produce 10 to 15 inches of rain. So as out in the western sections of the county where the drainage is not good, we are going to have flooding, but likely not life-threatening flooding, and that's why we don't evacuate those areas.
Okay, Brian, one more thing for you, and then we'll wrap it up down here. Everybody's talking about their Webers and their grills, their portable propane tanks. How should they secure those?
They should bring those tanks in the house, Brian, but not use them inside. Bring them in for the duration of the hurricane. Turn the thing off all the way, lock it down, be sure that nobody uses the thing, and then so that you have access to it after the storm, because the likelihood, most of us here have electric ovens and electric stoves. The likelihood is for at least some period of time, many of us are not going to have electricity, so you're going to want to use that. People are lucky that have that and are going to have access to it to be able to cook. Now, if you can't, tie it down the best you can. If you can't bring it in, tie it down the best you can, but, put some newspapers, put something on the floor, wheel it in, and get it in out of the weather so you'll have access to it afterward. Now, I understand that Susan Wallace is standing by at the Dade County Office of Emergency Management, which is where the evacuation order will be given once it is given, anticipated tomorrow. Susan, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Brian. We're inside the Emergency Operations Center, and if people are calling the rumor control hotline, I want to take you down the hall and see the place where they're actually receiving these calls. There have been 7 volunteers on duty all day, and needless to say, the phones are ringing off the hook here as well. Questions calling, people from other parts of South Florida, a pregnant woman calling, trying to figure out how she can accommodate her situation, another person calling with a boat, some people calling about medications. The most common call we understand, though, is how to find the nearest shelter. And we're going to run these numbers for you in Dade, Broward, Monroe, and a 1-800 number. If we can bring those up on the screen, you can call these people if you have any questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question in this situation. In Dade County, it's 596-8735. In Broward, it's 357-8454. Monroe County is 289-6018. And that 1-800 number, again, is 1-800-427-8340. Now, I have a question for you, Brian, that has been asked of me. What if you have a gas stove at home? Can you continue using that gas stove during the hurricane?
Well, here's the thing. We do not want anybody to have any open flames during the hurricane. If the gas is still on and the gas company hasn't cut it off after the storm, of course, you're to your advantage. And as a matter of fact, in hurricanes in the past, gas has survived better than electricity. And the reason for that is that the power company will actually cut off the electricity in order to save the power grid and make them be able to get it back on more quickly. So the bottom line is we don't have no open flames, no candles, no gas stove, no nothing during the storm, but hopefully the gas would be on. There's a good chance it would be after the storm.
Should you disconnect your own gas lines?
No, the gas lines would not be a threat. I guess if you were in an area that was being evacuated, I would shut off all electricity and all gas to your home before you evacuate. Okay. But other than that, you're okay. And we're running out of time here, and we want to go down to the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables. And Miles Lawrence, Miles, are you with us?
Yes, Brian.
Miles, do we have late information?
Well, we're getting ready to put out a new advisory at 8 p.m. It hasn't been put out yet. We're getting those numbers ready, but essentially the storm's continuing due westward. It'll be a little closer to Miami than the previous coordinates, but we're still looking at Sunday for the northern Bahamas, Monday for Miami, for Florida, not just Miami.
The bottom line is that with the late information that has come in the last few hours since the latest advisory, no significant change in direction or intensity. So we're under the hurricane watch. We're going to be under the hurricane watch probably till tomorrow morning.
That's exactly right.
Okay. All right, Miles, we'll be back with you, and we'll stay in touch with you all evening long.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so to re-emphasize what's going on here, hurricane watch means hurricane conditions possible here, and I would say a little more than possible somewhere within our viewing area by Monday morning with storm conditions sometime during the day on Monday. And, of course, we'll be here. And as soon as that new advisory comes in, we'll break into the programming and have it for you. Jerry?
Brian, if I don't evacuate, is there a safest place in my house to be?
No, I would rather say you should evacuate. State law says if the evacuation
No,
is
if I'm
ordered,
not in an evacuation
not in an evacuation zone. Okay. The safest place to be is away from the windows. Hopefully, most people have shutters. Many people don't. Do not get near the windows. Hunker down in a sort of inside hallway. Get away from the windows because that's where the danger is.
Okay, Brian, thanks very much. Well, with the hurricane watch in effect, it's important for you to know the latest on where Andrew is. Stay tuned to Channel 4 for updated storm coordinates every 15 minutes and complete information at the top of the hour. Plus, we'll have an extended 1-hour edition of the Channel 4 News Nightcast. And at midnight, we'll have a special report, answers to your hurricane questions. And if a hurricane warning is issued, we will provide continuous coverage. See you at 11.
Here are the official Florida Lottery Cash 3 and Play 4 games for August 22nd, 1992, supervised by Lottery Security and certified by KPMG Pete Marlowe. Tonight's first winning Cash 3 digit is 5. The second digit is 0. And the third digit is 4. So tonight's winning number, 504. Remember to tune in tonight, 11 Eastern Time for Lotto. And now it's time to Play 4. Sally Lambert selects tonight's first winning digit. 3. The second digit is 9. The third digit is 0. And the last digit is 4. So tonight's winning number, 3904. This week's Lotto jackpot is worth an estimated $6 million to a single winner. Good night and good luck, Florida.
Channel 4 News. Real life, real news.
Where have you been?
The heart of a woman. Narcisse Enticement. Your gift with any Narcisse fragrance purchase at Burdines.
I'm glad I didn't wait any longer.
Cadillac has sweetened the deal. Now you'll get a $2,000 bonus when you purchase a new 1992 Cadillac DeVille, Fleetwood, or Brougham.
It felt like a safe move.
Every Cadillac comes with a responsive V8, anti-lock brakes, and rugged safety cage. Selection is diminishing, so see the Cadillac dealers of Florida today. It could change the way you think about American automobiles.
And toast with butter, sir. Oh, miss, do you have Philly?
Miss? Miss?
In preparation for landing.
Could
I'll take that now, and please fasten your
It's not just the taste. Philly cream cheese also has ounce for ounce half the calories of butter or margarine. Next time, butter your bread with Philly instead.
You bought it, Matt. You gotta handle it.
If you buy something at Circuit City, then see it advertised for less, just come back. Our low price guarantee means you'll get the difference.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Last week I bought this.
Plus 10% of the difference.
And today I saw this. Just open the paper and there it was.
It's that easy. Yeah.
That's it?
That's it.
Cool.
Circuit City, where service is state of the art.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend.
Louise here was saying that she will not freeze her hearty chicken soup in Gladlock zipper bags.
No, I'll only use the bag my mother uses.
Really? Well, let's go live to your parents' house.
Louise, we've switched to Gladlock zipper bags. Their yellow and blue make green seals shows the bag is closed. Your bag doesn't have a green seal. If you'd visit more often, you'd know that.
I'll switch to Gladlock, too.
Isn't it nice to see Gladlock bringing families together? When it really counts, only Gladlock has the yellow and blue make green seal.
I hate to clean. That's why I love this new Fantastic. Did you see it? It cuts through grease without leaving a film. So when I have company coming, I have time to do the really important things, like wipe the lipstick off the milk container. No grease, no film, new Fantastic.
Mighty Dog presents Bandit. Pound for pound, he uses up more energy than most dogs twice his size. That's why we make Mighty Dog, with a perfect balance of nutrients. It does big things for little dogs.
The brand. In the West, it's the way a man marks what's his. We're the Beef People, and our WD brand is on every step.